Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here. We're going to be talking about expanding service management practices and tools beyond IT. And so we're seeing a huge push across our customer base and across our potential customers as well to really make the most of a service management platform, which includes synchronizing the entire organization, not just IT. So with that, let me go ahead and introduce myself real quickly and my partner in crime here. So my name is Andrew Graff. I am Chief Product Officer here at TeamDynamix, and I'm joined by Bill Clayman, who is a technology evangelist, a really forward-thinking individual. So Bill, say hello. People are going to get to know you during this webinar well.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be discussing this. And listen, everything that we're going to be talking about is going to be critical. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. And everyone on here is probably well versed in ITSM. You've probably rolled out a service management tool. When we start thinking about enterprise service management across the different organizations, your legal, procurement, HR, marketing, and the list goes on, most of these types of organizations are providing service in some way or another to your internal team members or your clients. But a lot of them are using email, they're using spreadsheets, they're using a tool that maybe you built and you have to maintain, or something that's separate from the solutions you're using. So it becomes difficult to collaborate, difficult to gain visibility on how teams are working together. So, should have mentioned this. This is going to be a full contact webinar. You are going to be asked to do things. So, part of this will be questions that we'd like you to answer. So, that will help guide Bill and I's conversation and our experience sharing. So first poll. So this is a test to see if everyone's awake after lunch. Where are you in your ESM journey? Have you not started? Are you just within IT? Have you gotten to a couple other groups? And it's kind of interesting. We have clients who range from having just IT to 200 different departments using enterprise service management capabilities. So this will be very fascinating to see where people land. And Bill,
I'm
I think
sad that we
most
can't
people are.
vote. I got the questionnaire who popped up and it says hosted panelists can't vote. And I think it's always fun to sort of see where we are. Um, I'm genuinely
They don't
looking
trust
for
us.
I'm looking forward to hearing what people are talking about. Look, I think enterprise service management and just the level of interconnectivity, not within just an organization, but between groups in an organization, has fundamentally changed. I'm not even gonna go 5 years or anything like that. It was literally like 24 to 36 months ago. It was already a lot different. Um, you know, 2020 was a big, push towards innovation and the acceleration of adopting new service technologies. But right now, an organization's ability to stay competitive is really kind of dictated by how well their teams and their systems are interconnected.
Yep. Well, let's see what people had to say. So I think good news is we've got a mix, but I think even better news is a lot of people on this webinar have not yet started expanding into other departments. So I think it looks like we've got the lower end of the ESM maturity scale, which I think is really good for webinars like this, right? And so hopefully everyone has something to take away, but those of you who are just getting started or have a few groups, hopefully there will be more. Okay, so we have another question right away. Usually hosts of these things let you take a breather between questions, not us.
Nope.
Which,
Participation points.
oh, that's right. What you don't know is this is going to be nothing but questions for everyone, every single slide. I'm just kidding. So which groups are best for enterprise service management within your business? So what are the areas that you think are most, um, I guess, have the biggest opportunities for improvement? This is HR, marketing, legal, compliance. Um, yeah, let me see if we can get the poll pushed out here.
Really genuinely curious about this. And I know I dangled the carrot about, what we're discussing. So this is a really introspective question. One of the things that Andrew and I do really well is we love interacting with you, the audience. So if you have a question or comment or concern, please don't be shy. We're going to be keeping an eye on the Q&A windows here. There's a reason why Andrew's asking this question. And I think as the poll gets pushed out, because we're going to talk about it. We are legitimately going to talk about you today. which I think is extraordinary. Andrew and I have been doing this for quite some time, and we always discuss new points of interconnection, ways that we can give back hours to people, strategies to really create an architecture for business in that enterprise space to just make you more efficient, more effective. But we're not talking about replacing people, right? We're making you more efficient. And I think this is one of the first times that we're going to learn about you. So please, get off your Amazon shopping list for a second. Answer the question here.
Unless it's
Um,
something really, really good that you've been really looking for a
mhm,
very long time, then you get a hall pass. That's my opinion.
exactly. I'm I have my guesses. I have my guesses in this, and I have a feeling that there's some groups in this list that are, let's say, coming online in the ESM space more recently than in the past, especially with folks like that have compliance and regulation bound around them. But now we've got technologies that can support those teams. So I'm so curious to see uh what the responses are.
Yeah, really interesting so far. I'm just gonna give it another second. People are really participating, Bill, which is really good. Sometimes you can tell people are asleep or shopping, whatever it is. Not today. It's
No,
no, not
no.
today. I would give you all at least 4 stars, maybe 5.
Zoom doesn't have a bonus point feature yet. I wish I could just like throw out a gold star, a virtual gold star. I'd feel better.
A Google review. All right, let's see. We're gonna share. Unsurprisingly, HR takes the cake. Facilities number 2, operations number 3. Does anything surprise you here?
I'm really grateful to see facilities. I'm really glad to see facilities. Listen, I I grew up in like the data center digital infrastructure space. So to see enterprise service management functions being built into, building management, infrastructure management, something even potentially broader than that, I love it. I think those top three, Andrew, are my favorites: HR, operations, and facilities. These are really sometimes complex. And what are ways that we can make life easier for these folks? What a great list. Holy cow.
I know one thing that surprises me is we have no one with legal. We are seeing quite a few legal departments having to manage the review of contracts, purchase agreements, all these different things. It gets complicated. And we're seeing a lot of organizations implement the ability to request a review of legal terms or ask a question about regulation, and then that goes through a workflow. So that does strike me. That is interesting. Other groups we've worked with and polled, legal has had more of a presence. But
I gotta echo you, Andrew. I hear you and I agree with you 100%. I think offloading some of these functions could be scary. You don't want to make a mistake. These contracts can be really complicated. And again, kind of dangling the carrot. I know we're going to talk about this, and maybe this is an opportunity to sort of demystify how these technologies impact the legal industry. You're right though. That I was zero. I was expecting to
I
see at
know
least one. The one
zero.
person in sales. Thank you.
0. Just the strikeout for legal. I think this is really helpful to help set the stage for Bill and I as we talk this through. As we think about enterprise service management, right? I want to talk a little bit about what we do, Team Dynamics. I'm going to keep it very brief, but I think it'll give you some context as to why we're here and why we're talking to you. So we provide a work management platform, no code, so it's very easy to own. But the idea is that we're able to help drive efficiencies without overwhelming anyone on staff, right? We can allow multiple departments to collaborate effectively around things like onboarding, right? There's lots of work that needs to be done across the organization, and just help every part of the organization become more efficient and effective. And as you can see from the slides, some of the statistics we brought from studies, it can be pretty powerful. So if you think of Team Dynamics as this platform that has enterprise service management capabilities, self-service capabilities, AI, a great integration automation layer to take manual tasks off of the shoulders of your team, free them up to do different, more meaningful work. I mean, I think all of us know that resources aren't falling from trees. Not that they ever have been, but I think I'm feeling it more than ever that our customers are saying, listen, we're not getting budget increases, but the demands have skyrocketed. So how do we deal with it? And that's what we help customers do. One way we think about it is synchronizing the enterprise. So if you think about um, IT, all those things contained within IT, right? You need to have answers, self-serve. The IT team needs to address it. But if you think about a lot of requests, especially with HR, they have an IT component. Someone needs to change their name, their address. They need to change It's something about their benefits packages, PTO, et cetera. It's really important that those types of requests are handled as much efficiency, accuracy, and care as IT requests, and that collaboration can help as well. So now we're going to get into the meat of this. So when we think about going beyond IT, there's a handful of what we see as most common use scenarios. And I've listed them here. We can talk about some of them. I want you to read these. I'm not going to talk about each of them, but what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these activities within the context of actual customers using the product. So rather than opine about each of these individually, we'll talk about real examples, which I think will help bring this to life. So you can look at peer organizations and how they're addressing them. But if you look at this, we've talked about some of it, onboarding, offboarding, a lot of collaboration across the organization, a big HR and IT function, facilities work orders, right? Something that's incredibly difficult if you don't have a tracking tool. Most organizations do, but a lot of them are very rudimentary. It's hard to get reporting. We even have a lot of people using paper-based. Well, now it needs to be mobile. It needs to be able to support, maintenance activities, et cetera. Marketing for creative support and equipment as well is something we see. So marketing has AV equipment, right, for events, things like that. They need to be able to monitor those. Reporting a quality issue or a safety issue, we see that a lot in the system. Legal contract reviews are asking about certain regulations, setting up vendors. If I have a new vendor as a department, I want to go to finance for that. And HR cases, right? So let's go ahead and dive in, and we'll start talking about actual customer examples. So the first one we want to talk about is Casino Arizona. 3,500 employees, right? Many of you may have been to some of their locations, but what's really cool about Casino Arizona is they use this pretty broadly. Of course, they use it in IT, but some interesting use cases. Before I dig into those, what has happened there is they've had a 70% reduction in the time to sign off on approvals. So when somebody requests something, the time it takes to sign off has dropped by 70%. And that's a pretty important statistic for them. But one of the big things they do is provision employees. So they're automating that process when a new employee comes on. You can imagine they have lots of that going on. It gets requested through TeamDynamix. All the right departments have the right manual steps, but then they automate a lot of it too. So nobody wants to go in and set up an Active Directory account by hand, right? So those types of things can be automated for certain. And then also they use it a lot in facilities. So they have big events. You can imagine concerts, big conferences. Well, they use these tools to create workflows that help them prepare for the events, clean up after the event. So housekeeping uses it quite a bit. Mobile was a key because their team members are all over the facilities, changing key card access. All of this stuff gets requested and automated. So it's a big deal for them. I mean, Bill, as you think about Casino Arizona, how have your experiences? I know you're deep into lots of technology trends, especially service management, AI, et cetera. But when you think about Casino Arizona, what are your thoughts about how they've adopted ESM?
I think you nailed something really important. What Casino Arizona did is they didn't replace people, right? They augmented their capabilities to do something a lot more effective. And I think what they noticed is as a result that empowered their staff, they saw a impact on the product, what they were able to deliver to their clients and the experience for properties guests. One of the things that I want to make sure the audience takes away from this is we are going to be talking about a really cool couple of use cases here. And these organizations put on their childhood imagination cap and asked, what can I do with these technologies that truly moves the needle for my business? And in this case, as these businesses, especially in this case, they had an older environment, they had an older system, right? They were doing things very manually. And my goodness, if this is the most important, just because it works doesn't mean it's bringing you value. Okay. And sometimes that's the most difficult thing to wrap around your head. But the lights are blinking. I'm like, right, but there's cobwebs on it and a whole lot of dust. I'm excited to see organizations like this. Listen, I worked in Las Vegas for 4 years. I was this little data center company called Switch. And so I saw both how complex and how expansive these casinos can be. And to be able to provide a predictable type of experience for customers on the back end, it's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And seeing technologies like this make a true impact, everything from like making configurations easy, dealing away with things like dirty data, cleaning up your ecosystem and your repositories, Andrew, not just for this, but for future projects as well, right? You're going to have to do this kind of cleanup anyway. And so these types of integrations and systems, they ultimately create a what I like to talk about is the unseen benefits. You see cleaner data, you have better storage repositories, you're capable of shifting and responding to these kinds of trends far faster than you could without it. So, yay, it's an amazing TeamDynamix ESM platform, but on the back end, there are massive benefits for the actual IT, for the system, the people managing this process. So, I want to make sure that we don't take away from that. There are extraordinary benefits in deploying these kinds of systems because you do create a sort of hygiene by synchronizing your business together and seeing this data under one platform. I think that's sort of the secret message that's ultimately very important.
It's interesting. Casino Arizona has been an amazing example of taking a solution set and applying it for lots of organizational efficiencies. I have another example, a city in New York, and they really interesting. They implemented a preventative maintenance system using TeamDynamix for enterprise service management and assets. And they manage the facilities assets for PM and the work orders and the workflows. And they recently won what's called the Next Gen Award, which is and they were a finalist for the digital transformation with the Institute of Asset Management. So it's a North American organization. They won one award and they were a finalist for another. So I think it's pretty interesting. And all this was done with no code. So no one on that team is a software developer, which I think is also really important. And we'll get to that. The next customer examples we want to talk about is San Francisco Health Plan. So I thought this was pretty interesting. So where they had a lot of pain in enterprise service management was what they call their joiner, mover, leaver process. So that means team members who have joined the company, team members who are getting promoted and having role changes, or team members who have left the organization. So they have lots of systems. You can imagine ADP, Octave, Active Directory, all the different software applications that people use in their initial role, in any role they switch to, or anything that has anything that they need to be shut down when they're offboarding. So what they've done is they use the service management requests to kick off the process. The manual processes are part of a workflow, and then they use the integration and automation layer to automate the work with those tools, those solutions that I mentioned. So what happens is the HR team can actually kick off the onboarding process, and it works like clockwork. It's become a lot smoother. And they have what IT has reported is that they have far fewer errors and they're fighting fires a lot less. So, let's say HR, I'm sure everyone knows that everyone outside of IT is always doing things on time and per the guidelines of the business and putting that new hire request in at the exact right time. So IT has all the time in the world to get done what they need to do. We know that doesn't happen. So what has happened here is this has systematized it. So rather than needing a week to get somebody up and running and onboarding, it's minutes and hours, right? So Bill, what is your observation? I mean, you're familiar with this story here with San Francisco Health Plan. What else would you add?
I I just really want everyone to know that so Andrew and I and the team here, we had a couple of pre-calls, and during the pre-call we're like, all right, we want to tell an extraordinary story. We know we got a great technology, we know we got this really cool integration, but what does it actually do to move the needle for a lot of the folks? And so Andrew and the team was challenged, like, okay, customers, we do some pretty extraordinary things. Let's pick some of the ones that are really, really special. So you're talking about, and by the way, I'm looking at the notes for this. And because just the use case is extraordinary, right? We're talking about employee onboarding, role changes, and offboarding. Now, if you're sitting there and thinking, oh, they're talking about just another we're not. This is not just another HR operation. This is not just about automation. This is a massive healthcare organization that was bound by compliance and regulation that Andrew's team was capable of integrating with. But what you're talking about is, and I like this word that you use, Andrew, the synchronization of an organization. You're synchronizing ADP, Okta, Active Directory, IT systems and tools, key workflows, and automating all of that. You've taken massively important functions of this organization, this hospital, integrating them together, and then basically help them create an architecture that is much more efficient. Look, there's a key quote that I really want to make sure I read out from this, and I think it really exemplifies the story. Quote, there was a lot of repetitive work that just didn't add value. And as a mission-driven organization that's measured by member outcomes, they noticed that their members were being distracted. So how do we stop these hours long processes that used to take us manual time in operations, and how do we make it easier? Like I said, what ultimately moves the needle for this business, and what I'm really proud of San Francisco Health Plan, is that they didn't stop by saying integrating things like ADP, Okta, Active Directory, SaaS-based applications and stuff on-prem. This is too hard. We're just going to keep using pen and paper. They actually went out there and tried it. I want to make sure that we note the complexity of the back-end systems and what was done to truly synchronize all of this, and then the ultimate benefit for a healthcare organization. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like too, our product owner there uses the term an aggregated source of truth, which in a
Brilliant.
large organization becomes incredibly important. We all know how things can slip through the cracks if we have some of what we need to do in email, we have some in system A and some in system B. So I think that's been a really good use case for them. The next one I want to talk about is Ag South. Interesting organization. It's a credit bureau that largely loans to farmers and farms. And why I think this is really interesting is a lot like San Francisco Health, they're highly regulated. So when they don't do things on time, they can be fined for it, right? There are actual financial ramifications, regulatory ramifications. So as a financial firm, services firm, really interesting. They're using this a lot for typical IT scenarios. You have your typical IT help desk, HR for onboarding. But what they've done is in their service catalog, they've really built a knowledge base, really built out a whole area about legal compliance and review because they're processing loans, and those loan decisions have to be made. So anytime one of the loan officers has a question about compliance or regulation and they need a review, they can very easily submit the request to the legal team. And again, think about the timing. Everyone, I mean, not most of us have been fortunate enough to be able to apply and be qualified for a loan. You know how that is. When you need that, it needs to happen fast. And if you're in a business like a farm where you need working capital, that type of efficiency is really important. And what's interesting about this, when these requests used to come in, they went through a convoluted review process. It was slow. So what they've seen is a 50% drop in the amount of time it takes to review a request and a 50% drop in the amount of time it takes to approve. So from a compliance and regulatory standpoint, this has been a big deal. And now these loan officers aren't emailing people one off. Everyone knows to go to the portal. There's lots of knowledge there, so they can answer a lot of their own questions. It's really improved the efficiency. And again, one of the biggest things for them was no code,
Hmm.
because as you can imagine, in all organizations, software developers' time is so limited. So asking somebody who has software development background to configure forms and workflows and fields and make customizations is just too much for most organizations. We actually transition a lot of customers off of what I would call dev heavy platforms to our no code platform. That's a huge part of our business. So I think that's a really important point here, but a really interesting use case. And you can imagine for an organization whose business is to serve a community of farmers who need working capital and be able to reduce those approval times by 50%, right? And still not sacrifice the quality of those reviews, right? So from a compliance standpoint, they're still adhering to their standards. That's pretty neat. I mean, Bill, what did you take away from these stories from Ag South?
I'm glad that we had a legal use case. I'm kind of glad that we had 0% of people like, oh, there's no way you could use this in the
Yeah.
legal industry. You can, in especially in those that have to adhere to very strict federal compliance standards. Um, look, there's it's clear there's benefits here, right? You talked about the 50% faster response time, improved service quality. You quite literally, this is a quote from the customer, giving you the ability to move forward and advance through a full digital transformation. But there's something else important that you mentioned, and that's low code and no code. I remember attending an Oracle event like about 4 or 5 years ago and learning about more deeply about low code and no code. And today I see it not just as a technology tool, but as an agent to empower individual contributors within an organization, especially those that don't have any development experience, nor do they need to. Um, I've had a chance to see TeamDynamix's infrastructure, and specifically as it relates to no code enterprise service management and IT service management, what you're capable of doing. And please understand, if you don't know what this is, low code, no code, there's a couple of good people on this webinar that you could email for a demo. And if it's just 15 and 20 minutes of your time, just to see what you as a developer who has no experience with coding can create, it's just special, right? I don't want to call it magic, but it is really impactful technology that's gone through an extended amount of maturity. Um, Bear with me for just one more second. So you are an individual contributor in an organization, right? You have developers, you have IT people, and they're really wonderful. You know your job better than they do. You know exactly how to interact with customers better than they do. If only you had this portal where you could drag and drop a function, add something you require, change the visibility of something for your team without having to request a developer to do it, wouldn't that be amazing? That's what this is. He's not giving you the keys to the kingdom to change an entire software platform. Instead, you are given the ability using no code to impact and influence your specific area of the business and changing your outlay, changing your portal, adding, removing features. It really is truly drag and drop. And what we found, and especially I found, is that people in marketing, in sales, in finance, people who never would have thought that they would be doing this are suddenly becoming contributors to the overall business plan. That's what this is. I know it's a legal business use case. I know it can be complicated, and the overarching story here is really cool. But the biggest point is that we are now seeing individuals become champions of their own of their own departments because they can control it. They can create, and that's what this technology is. And again, if this is like super ethereal for you, like I don't think this works. Just check it out. I remember I've seen multiple demos of this, and that's what you get a chance to experience is a mature platform that you can manipulate that benefits you directly.
Yeah, and there's two things that I want to point out here that I think that might get lost. The first, and I think the legal example brings us into acute focus, but one of the things that legal teams really like about this, a good no-code enterprise service management tool, is that when regulations change or processes need to change, they don't have to wait on developers to make those changes. So rather than trying to figure out, okay, between this change and what our process need to look like and when the tool can support it, we need to train people on all these workarounds. No, we can just change the process and the solution to support it. That's a big deal.
There's
The other
there's a
thing,
legal thing. There's a legal aspect of this as well, right? I mean, there's, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Andrew. There's a
no
business part to
problem.
this too. There's an actual like, how does this solution ultimately generate revenue? And this comes from the client. We have a record of an answer as a ticket comes in, and what they're capable of doing is saying, hey, this client is asking or generating a lot of tickets and generating a lot of conversation. If we notice the same question coming in frequently, we can develop a process, a report, and a graph using low code and no code. So not just this automation part of it, but also saying, hey, I think we're onto something, whether it's a billable instance or maybe potentially improving a customer experience. There's a back end function of the business side of here as well.
I think this leads well into this next slide, thinking about when you're thinking about a solution for ESM, what's important. And this is from our customer base, right? This is what we have divined from them. These are the key things that they're looking for. And I will say that, if you're a Fortune 50 company and you're a CIO there, and adding 20, 30, 40 people to your staff to develop against a platform, be the owners and maintainers and gatekeepers of a platform, a solution that requires coding is probably a pretty good idea if that is something you can do, because it's infinitely customizable. It's going to be very expensive. But in organizations where that kind of headcount is a rounding error, no problem. Most of our customers aren't that way, right? Most of our customers need the resources dedicated to serving their customers, internal and external, not supporting systems. So low admin overhead is important. And I think one thing that escapes these examples that we're talking about that are non-IT is that at some point, if you're in IT, you're sitting here and you might be nodding your head and saying, you might have already gotten here, by the way, you're nodding here and saying, this is really good, but it'll dawn on you, wait a minute, who builds this and maintains it? Is this something that's going to fall back on me and my team? Because most people I know in IT are not looking for other things to care for and feed. So what happens is usually IT gets the ball rolling because you're experts in service management, but then the department admins can manage their own sandbox. If someone in HR needs to add a field to something and add a condition to a workflow to route it based upon that field value, they don't have to come to you. So that again is taking burden off of IT, but providing enterprise value. And that gets into that easy to customize for each group. The portal's really important, right? Being able to get the self-service. Bill mentioned that Ag South tracks what kind of questions you're being asked and then produces knowledge content for that. Automations, we talked a bunch about how automations remove those steps where all somebody is doing is being a mouse jockey. They're not adding value other than controlling the mouse and moving data. That is something a machine can do, right? Period. And probably more effectively, more quickly, and that team member doesn't like to do that stuff. I don't know anyone who says, well, I just like to transcribe data from one system to another and click my mouse all day. Most people want to help customers with problems that require gray matter to address. That's where most people get fulfillment in their job. So I think the automation workflow and integration is important, and then clearly reporting. I mean, do you have anything else to add to this, Bill?
I do. There's a maturity level behind these technologies. Andrew, you nailed it. The capabilities of automation, flow architecture for your organization improved over the past few years. And one of the things that Andrew's talking about, and what we've seen in working with different kinds of architectures and solutions, is the low-hanging fruit of AI, the low-hanging fruit of architecture, the low-hanging fruit of automation. And for everybody on this call, you won't know if you can do it until you can ask, right? And you'd be surprised the kinds of optimizations you can create for your business. And it's not designed to blow the bank, right? These kinds of solutions are designed to create an ROI, not in years. Please understand, it's just in a few months. When you create levels of automation, better ticketing, and even this low code, no code kind of an architecture, you directly inject innovation and capability into the workforce and into the folks, the people you work with. So as opposed to the past where maybe it was a little bit more manual and you'd have to do all these other bits and pieces, now it is easy to customize. These portals are in increasingly more powerful. The automation you could do, the reporting, obviously the low admin overhead. The aspects here are so much easier to deploy than they were in the past.
Mhm. I agree with that. I think another thing, if you sit and close your eyes and envision sitting in a conference room or on a Zoom call, talking about a new process that a customer wants or you need to provide to your customers, and being able to, in that meeting, mock up the right form and create a workflow and essentially prototype it right there. And if it works, put it into quote unquote production, right? With just clicking your mouse. That's pretty powerful. Or if you're working with a customer, to come back a couple of days later and actually show them something like, look,
Yep.
how does this work for you? Right? Is this data capture what you need? Here's how this workflow would work. What do you think we need to do here? Right? That's a pretty amazing capability to have.
And
And
you can
that
standardize success, Andrew. that's the other thing that I really want to make sure folks understand is that you can standardize success. So when you see these models work properly, you can actually apply them to different departments in your organization. So if the marketing creates a portal that's really great at addressing and working with tickets, you can take that and apply it to different parts of your business. The synchronization of an enterprise. I'm going to use that, Andrew. That's one of my favorite, like, I think, lines. The other thing is this: you had a slide up a little bit earlier, and if you take a look at all the things that this platform AI layer actually integrates, listen, it's everything from job sites to Oracle to HR systems from Workday to GitHub and DevOps. So when Andrew says the synchronization of your entire organization, that's what it is.
Yeah, the goal is to be able to reach into the systems that are relevant to your business processes that are request based and either extract the data you need for that process or to take action you need for that process. That's the goal, right? And to be able to do that in a no code way. And
Mhm.
also, I think, when you think about integration automation, there's systems that require Deloitte or Accenture to implement and take 24 months. And then there's systems where when it says an integration, it's a black box. You have very few choices. We have found that the right mix is in between those things where it's very low overhead, but each each organization has enough nuances to their processes that that sort of fixed, hey, this thing does these three things only doesn't suffice. We switch a lot of customers off of what I would consider lower end tools that just run into these roadblocks. Like, look, I
Mhm.
needed to tweak and tailor that integration enough that it just doesn't suffice, but I don't want to go to the other end and have to implement MuleSoft, right? That's way more than what we want to tackle. So
Mhm.
that feeds into sort of our what I call our philosophy here. And the first is rapid time to value. Bill hit on it perfectly, right? Being able to stand one of these things up, add value, being able to stand up an AI agent for your customers very quickly based upon your existing knowledge. So you don't have to go through copious amounts of training and revision. You can add value quickly, right? And then try to delight everyone. So try to give you the tools so that you can set up the data intake in a way that's requiring the least amount of information possible to get the job done. And as somebody has a request that might require more, the data, the request on the field expands. So they're not seeing every field in the world when they start. They only see what they need for that particular request. And then we talk about staying ahead. So the idea here is that as you, and that means your business, as you see changes on the horizon, you can quickly tweak those workflows, quickly tweak the knowledge content, quickly tweak the knowledge that the AI agent has. And I think that's really important for us as we think about product. So if we, I think I jumped way ahead here. There we go. I don't know how that happened, but you think about no code, right? We've talked about it a lot, so I don't think we need to spend a lot of time here. I think Bill and I have touched on it, but if you just think about what it takes to spin up a new form, manipulate the fields on that form, set up workflows behind the form to use the data for routing, to use, and you want to use that data in reporting, creating new services, creating automations, all these, if you think about all these functions that are required to stand up enterprise service management, no code makes it accessible to your business analysts, right? I think it's great when somebody who has a business mind and is working in and around a system with the processes can actually take their vision and implement it without having to wait on somebody who's a technologist.
I think that's brilliant. I just want to stay here for just one more second. Look, time to value, that's a clear one, right? I think pleasing everyone is equally important, and here we actually have an opportunity to do that. I know we're not going to talk about this again, but the architecture of low code and no code, please, if that's the one thing you do after this really fun, exciting webinar, is you do your own little Googling or chat GPT or however you do your research these days, is you learn a little bit more about it. The bottom line is that these powerful no-code platforms allow business leaders without any knowledge of how to code to address your own development needs. And the whole thing about pleasing everyone is that you have a structured platform that allows it to be compartmentalized and basically work with in different kinds of divisions. So you do have the ability to have one powerful architecture that integrates everything, but allows individual units and business leaders to make the platform work for them, just like Andrew said, in the best possible way.
So we have another question. What are the biggest obstacles in your organization to deploying enterprise service management? Right? These range from we don't have any at all, we're really good at it. It's like clockwork. Anytime we need a new department, we spin it right up. There's no friction to we don't have any time to do this. We don't have the resources to do it. Our tools are really cumbersome. It's a big drain on us. I think you can see the choices here. And this one's always interesting to me. Our experience with this is typically pretty evenly spread. With the exception of we're fully deployed and are experts at this. That's usually the smallest cohort here of respondents.
I'm too excited about this. I want to see what folks say. We got a first piece of feedback, Andrew, earlier. It's like, oh my God, you guys need to make this multiple choice. I think and for an earlier question as far as like why people are doing this, somebody wanted to maybe select a couple. So note taken, by the way, and anybody else, if you have a comment or a question, we are monitoring the Q&A. We're not ignoring you. So if you have something to add, by all means, we might call it out. Um, I have some thoughts on this, Andrew. I have some thoughts
Someone
on
wanted this to be a multi-response poll as
I
well.
next
Billy,
time.
it was a
Listen,
fail.
feedback taken.
Bill, I feel like we failed.
It's okay. It's all right.
First
Next
time
time.
I've ever seen you fail, Bill.
From failure, you become even better. Fall fast, get up faster.
That's
Um,
right. Let
I,
me share some results here. We'll see where we landed. Very interesting.
very
I
interesting.
have some thoughts about getting buy-in, but Bill, how do you react to this?
I I like the last answer. It is time consuming to deploy. I have a feeling that some folks may be working with some legacy systems there. Getting buy-in from various teams, that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Look, a lot of things that I've seen. I'm lucky. I've had a chance to work with, really advanced AI, Gen AI technologies, and obviously working with enterprise service management tools. It's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Right? Is this going to replace me? Is it going to make my life more complicated? Is this another screen I have to look at? And solutions like TeamDynamix aren't out there to make your life more complicated. They're not. I've personally had a chance to speak with and work with people working at TeamDynamix, the customers ranging from, just municipalities and cities and towns trying to do things more effectively to massive organizations, and each of them finds a golden nugget. And when you do deploy this, I guess the buy-in is just easier to happen. But I get it. I get it. Sometimes it's hard to believe. Can you really synchronize my entire organization? It's just like, let me show you how to do it. I think that one is a big challenge, but also sometimes the most fun to overcome when you have the aha moment.
Yeah, one of the things about getting buy-in, and obviously, I don't know the specifics of those who responded that was their main obstacle, but what we have found is that buy-in comes from pain, pronounced pain that these solutions solve. So what the typical trajectory is that there are a handful of departments who are managing the request via email or some antiquated system or even on paper, and they have a lot of pain around it. Their customers don't like it, they don't like it. So they're more open to solutions. And what we've seen, I think our best clients do, is IT will mock something up. They will take that website they use, or they'll say, hey, send us a couple of those emails you get. They'll mock up a form, a basic workflow, put a couple of examples in. It takes in less than an hour or two, you can have an app set up with forms and workflows and example requests, and they use their verbiage. So showing, hey, here's something we could do, right? Look, all those emails that are coming in can get automatically converted into tickets and get posted here so you can better manage them. Is that helpful? Then what we see is the teams who said, no, 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 thanks, we don't need that. Once enough other departments have gotten on board, they start looking and saying, hey, what are they doing over there? Like, what is that they have that, should we have a look? And you're not going to get 100%. And it's unreasonable to think that you would, because someone's paper process may be the right thing. They they might not have a need to change. So ain't broke, don't fix it. There is some of that, but we see this as a progression rather than a boil the ocean type of thing. But typically there are other departments out there that are really struggling that this can help. And when you talk about it, they may not get it. But if you show them something, one of the admins spends a couple hours mocking something up, the light bulb goes off often. So just something to think about there. Now, we have a poll question here. Really simple. What is your ITSM solution? Just trying to get a bearing on the scope of what people are using out there. Um,
Andrew,
see.
I think everything you just talked about is so incredibly important. Being able to visualize, see, and touch and feel, and actually see what it does for you. Um, I I don't know how many folks still do the whole pen, pad, and paper. I get that it's still there. Some doctors still have pagers. But I think the one big element that I
Mostly
want to make sure everyone
facilities, by the
understands
way.
here, where I've seen a big benefit here is that this type of technology, one of the few in the entire industry, allows your folks to put intellectual capital on it, digitize it. It helps them digitize it in how they envision it. First of all, I love this response. So that was my thought on this. Let's dive into this one.
Yeah, so it looks like we have a lot of TeamDynamix customers, good, but we also have some other organizations as well. So we welcome everybody without question. So one thing we want to do here is we think about enterprise service management. Right before we jump into the demo, I just want to reiterate a couple of things we've talked about. So
Yeah, there we
think about the ability to quickly create applications for each department using their nomenclature, support them with their own customer portals and AI, custom forms, workflows, be able to automate knowledge base. These are some of the core things that these different departments typically consume with us, and the departments range all over the place. Like I said, we have people just using HR and IT, and we have organizations that have 200 different departments, right? The very large organizations as well. So I think with that, what I want to do is I'd like to hand it off to my colleague, Alicia, who is here, who's actually going to take some of these things Bill and I have been chit-chatting about and put a visual to them, give you examples. So Alicia, with that, I am going to hand it to you. Then we'll come back and have some time for questions.
go.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. I will share my screen here. So for today, we're going to start in that end user portal where your end users can come to submit requests, check out knowledge base articles, see their outstanding tickets, and really just engage with your different teams. And then after that, we're going to switch over to the team member side and see what it's like to actually manage work within TeamDynamix. And so what you're seeing here is just an example of a client portal. So you can have this set up as a centralized location, a one-stop shop for your end users. Within here, you can have different department specific pages. So as you can see here, we have one for HR, we've got one for facilities. On pages like this, you can have department specific information, things like how to contact them, links to different relevant items for that department. And then here we also have our service catalog. So within here, you can make all of those services that are available across all of your departments. So for example, here we have legal. So end users can place things like contract review requests. We also have human resources here. So if users have questions about benefits or if they need to onboard a new person, they can start that process here. And then we also have a facilities option here. So maybe the user needs key card access or wants to submit another type of work order. They can absolutely do that right from this portal. And then within the service catalog, you can even set some different permissions on these different services. So for example, if only managers should be able to request a new hire, then they're going to be the only ones that would see that one specific option. And then in addition to the service catalog, they can also utilize this search. So if, for example, they know they need to request a key, they can simply type in key here, and that can bring them right to that type of request that they need. And then on a service like this, you can set expectations for that end user. Maybe what is that turnaround time, or why should they submit this request, or what can they expect when they submit this? And then we can go ahead and request that service here. So within here, I can say, hey, I need a key, and this is the location that I need it for. Maybe this building and this room within that building. And then here you can have those specific fields that you need for that type of request. So if you need an access card or if you need an actual key, and then, okay, well, you selected key, what type of key do you need? And so they'll be able to go in and choose those different keys that they need and provide any additional information as well. And so just keep in mind with these forms, for all those different departments, different groups that you would have utilizing TeamDynamix, they can completely customize those with those fields to gather all of that information that is important for them. And then from here, they'll be able to see that ticket that they just submitted. But then also from this portal here, they're going to be able to go into their ticket request page. And so one thing I want to point out here is that this is going to show all of my tickets across each one of those departments that is utilizing TeamDynamix. And so for that end user, it just gives them that single pane of glass across the enterprise into, everything that they've got outstanding. And so the next thing that I want to do here is switch over into the team member perspective. So here I am logged in at a director level. She's somebody that just has access to everything. There's a couple things I want to show you here. So within TeamDynamix, every department has their own ticketing application, or you can think of it like here's our bucket of tickets. That's for our department. So you can see some of those here across the top. So within those applications, you can change the nomenclature and the types of tickets. So notice within the human resources application, I have things like cases and HR requests. However, in facilities, here I've got work orders and preventative maintenance and custodial services. And then under legal, I have, questions and contract reviews. So each one of these different applications can also have different statuses, forms, workflows, automations, and really at the end of the day, it gives each department a lot of flexibility in how they need it set up and how they want to work. So I want to dive into a couple of these. And so first, I want to switch over to my HR profile. And so I've got this organized to see maybe my open benefits requests. Here I've got my open recruitment requests, and here's all of my new hires. So if I open up one of these new hire requests here, on this ticket, I have an onboarding workflow. So if I open up that workflow, when it comes to onboarding, there's a lot of different tasks that need to be done, including tasks for different departments. And the great thing is that I can have all of that coordinated under one ticket to ensure that nothing is missed. And then also with these workflows, you can even reach out to iPass to integrate with third-party systems to automate different things like user creation. So next, I want to dive into the facilities side a minute. So here we've got Jerry in facilities, and notice he doesn't have access to HR's tickets or legal's tickets, but he has his facilities ticketing application as well as the facilities asset application. So if we come into his ticketing application, here we can see his work orders and some new work orders that have come in. Here we can see that one that we just submitted a minute ago. And then here at the bottom, we also have his work orders assigned by location. So here you can see, hey, here's everything that's in building A or everything in building B. If he's going into one of these buildings, he could open that up and just check out all those tickets and knock them all out at once. So if we come back up to that ticket that we submitted just a little bit ago for that key or access card request. So on this ticket, I can see that, she needs a key for this building and room here. And we can see all that information that she submitted and exactly what she needs. So I've got a workflow on this ticket as well. And the neat thing about this one is we've got a condition here. And so we can say that, hey, if she needs a key to the entire building, we need an extra approval here. And so you can have those conditions, those approvals all built in, and really just build out that process you need um, to handle each one of those ticket types. And then last here, we have a dashboard that's built for our legal team that's dedicated to contracts. And so from here, I can see all of those new contract requests that I have that maybe I need to review those. And then I can also see over here on the right, those contracts that are expiring in the next 60 days. And then when it's time to create a new contract record in the system, I can easily do so right with this button that's on my dashboard. So my examples from today are just showing some common ones that we will see, but just keep in mind you can have as many ticketing applications as you need for any type of group or process. So with that, I will pass it back to Andrew and Bill.
Great, thank you, Alicia. Go ahead and share my screen here. I think I'm going to be sharing my screen here.
Anytime. It's okay. People can see our beautiful faces and it's quite all right. But I think on that note, we're getting some pretty good questions from the audience. We have a couple minutes here. If you guys all have some questions, pop those into the Q&A. We'll have a minute or two to cover those.
Yeah, so there we go. Questions. So we do have a couple questions. One is, how many people do these companies have working on a TDX ESM employment? Is there a dedicated team to that? I can answer that. So it varies, but the average across our customer base is 0.214 FTE dedicated. So not a full, I know you can't have
Like a
0.214
6-year-old? I don't know what that means.
person, but that is the average. So that gives you some bearing. Now, it's not uncommon to move clients off of solutions where they have 5 or 10 plus admins. And then someone asked another question. Beginning to implement ITSM, and where does the integration automation fit in? Well, that fits in, as Alicia showed, where you kick off processes that need to automate things or retrieve information from other systems. So it allows you to essentially connect to hundreds of other systems and either pull information or take action based upon what's going on in your service management workflows. And it does relate heavily to IT processes, but also HR. Anything where there's another system somewhere out there that it needs to interact with. And
Hey,
then
I got one for you. I think this one was really interesting because I'm super curious about it as well. This goes back to whole synchronizing the organization and enabling individual units. Do you recommend one portal for the entire enterprise or separate?
really interesting. So the panacea is you have one portal for everything, that one stop, and we have plenty of customers who have them. Now, if you're a multi-company organization, clearly you want your own brand on each of those different portals. But if they're shared services, the way we do it is that you can have as many portals as you want and they can share content. So for example, there might be a thread across multiple divisions or parts of your organization, multiple companies under an umbrella that are shared services. So certain IT things, you might have the same knowledge base articles across all of them, branded differently, right? Same services, or subset, I mean, that are shared, but to the user of the portal, it's they can't see that those are actually being fulfilled by someone in central IT, et cetera. So it really depends. What there, another dynamic there is if a department already has their own, prying that out of their hands is often very difficult. So having the ability to spin up a client portal experience for them that has their content's great. You can also replicate that content in the organization portal, that one stop too. So a couple thoughts there.
Oh my gosh, Andrew, can I pretty please ask this no code one because I think it's an amazing question.
Sure.
I have to
We
ask
have
this because
1 minute. Let's do it.
I'm not surprised this one came in. I know we got like a minute or two left. So okay, with no code, and I get why they're asking this, can HR or other groups do their own administrating?
Yes, that is an easy one to answer. Now, I will say it's helpful to have a business analyst or somebody who has experience adminning some sort of software, right? Even if it's all no code, it's helpful to have somebody. But yeah, they can. So I think we got a lot of good questions from everybody, so we appreciate that. And we are at the top of the hour, so it is time for us to say goodbye. But thank you. If you have more questions, you can visit teamdynamix.com, or you can talk to your customer success management team if you're a customer of TeamDynamix. If not, teamdynamix.com, and we'd be happy to help you out. So thank you, and thank you, Bill. Pleasure as always, and thank you, Alicia.
Always a pleasure.